I'm a straightforward STEM woman, but my advisor forced me to go on a blind date with her son. In desperation, I randomly pulled a handsome guy off the street to pretend to be my boyfriend. It turned out the handsome guy was actually my advisor's biological son. He even happily accepted it when I called him husband for my thesis, and even moved in with me as a roommate. Yet he severely sabotaged me in a research competition, simply because I trust others too easily. As a STEM graduate student, I was the only girl in our lab. On the first day of school, my advisor took my hand and said he wanted to introduce me to his son, who was 6'2", handsome, and in great shape. As a straightforward STEM woman, I firmly refused. After that, my advisor hinted at it many times, but I never agreed. The lab organized a dinner, and my advisor threatened that I either had to bring a boyfriend or add his son as a friend. I paced back and forth at the restaurant entrance, not knowing what to do. Just as I was frowning, a handsome guy stood at the restaurant entrance, constantly looking around. I think I have a plan. I scurried over to him. Handsome, do you have a girlfriend? He glanced at me. No. I clapped my hands. What a coincidence, then. I'll give you one. With that, I linked my arm through his and led him into the restaurant. He tried to pull away. No, I'm still looking for someone. I patted my chest. You help me fend off someone, and I'll help you find the person you're looking for. He had a bewildered look, trying to push me away, but I held him tightly and he couldn't. I'm not illiterate. I don't need you to find someone. As soon as he finished speaking, I had already pulled him to the door of our lab's private room. As I pushed the door open, my senior classmates all became restless. Let me see if our junior sister has brought a boyfriend, or if she's waiting for the boss to set her up on a blind date. Because our graduate supervisor covered almost all of our expenses and occasionally paid us a salary, we all called him the boss. When they saw me with a handsome guy, the entire private room fell silent. The senior classmates all cautiously turned their heads to watch the supervisor's reaction. I pulled the handsome guy a few steps into the private room. Supervisor, this is my new boyfriend. The handsome guy, with my arm linked in his, looked at me, then at the supervisor. He opened his mouth and said, Dad? Dad? I couldn't help but repeat. The handsome guy I randomly pulled off the street turned out to be my supervisor's brilliant son. Didn't they say he was studying abroad? The supervisor suddenly smiled and waved us over. I was thinking of setting you two up before. When did you two secretly get together? No wonder Jennifer always refused to let me give her your contact information. The handsome guy pulled his arm free and raised an eyebrow at me. When did we get together? Probably 5 minutes ago. Because I had just said we were boyfriend and girlfriend, my senior colleague very considerately arranged for me and the handsome guy to sit together. During the meal, as I was eating heartily, the handsome guy leaned his head over and whispered in my ear, My name is Luke Dawson. I hear everyone calls you Jennifer, so I'll call you that too. My mouth was full of meat, so I couldn't speak and just nodded. He then said, Since we're boyfriend and girlfriend, shouldn't we get to know each other? I nodded again. He told me he had only been back in the country for a few days and planned to stay and work here. Incidentally, he told me about all the scholarships he had won and honors he had received abroad over the years. I remained unmoved. That is, until he mentioned he had 23 SCI papers, all as first author. I admit, my heart fluttered. I grabbed his arm and used the most affected, high-pitched voice I've ever used in my life. Hubby, I love you. He was speechless for a moment, then picked up a piece of meat with his chopsticks and put it on my plate. Even though you're so cheesy, those papers have nothing to do with you. Oh, I let go of his hand and continued eating. However, he said, a mischievous curve playing on his lips, future ones can. I didn't believe he could be that kind, especially with that smirk on his face. Seeing that I ignored him, he seemed to say to me, or perhaps to himself, if someone is willing to keep calling me husband, I would never do something so demeaning. But if it's for the sake of my thesis, then why not? I don't know why my advisor was so happy today, drinking nonstop. Finally, he drank himself unconscious. Luke struggled to help the advisor up and out the door. I noticed the advisor's steps were quite steady, but somehow he collapsed at the doorway. His useless son didn't even manage to hold him up. How could I let my advisor fall flat on his face? I ran over in a few steps and helped him up. As I did, the advisor's hand gripped my clothes tightly. Luke spread his hands. Help me get my dad into the car. Behind us, a bunch of senior students were just standing there watching the show, not a single one willing to lend a hand. The most senior PhD student looked at us and then waved to the other students. The advisor is drunk, he's going home first, let's keep drinking, come on, let's have one. All right, I guess I'll have to be the selfless one. Luke and I helped the advisor into the back seat, and he immediately lay down. Now that he's in the car, There's nothing more for me to do. I turned to leave, satisfied. But Luke grabbed my sleeve. Looking at his sincere eyes, I felt a vague sense of unease. What's wrong? He quickly let go of my sleeve, a little embarrassed, and said, Can you drive? I've been abroad for so long. I'm not very good at driving cars here. I nodded. Then find a designated driver. He scratched his head. I'm not very good at using domestic apps either. Then I'll call one for you. Sigh? Okay, hubby. I can drive. I quickly got into the car. Luke sat in the driver's seat, comfortably playing on his phone. I clearly saw him using the app with ease. To finish what I started, I helped my advisor upstairs. My advisor was clamoring for water, and Luke pointed to the water dispenser. Jennifer, could you get some water? I'll go find some hangover medicine. After getting the water, I carefully handed it to my advisor, afraid he might burn himself. He took the cup with trembling hands, but didn't hold it steady, and a cup of water spilled all over me. I rushed to the bathroom and lifted my clothes to see a large area on my stomach was already scalded. Luke heard the commotion outside and hurried into the bathroom. Are you okay? I quickly put down my clothes. It's nothing, nothing. Now I'll have 2 papers to write. He smiled. No big deal. Suddenly, a gust of wind slammed the bathroom door shut. Luke tugged at the handle, and it came right off. He looked at me with a slightly innocent expression. It's broken. Before I could react, the professor tugged at the doorknob from outside. Ah, it is broken. You 2 wait here. I'll go find a locksmith. Should be back in 3 or 4 hours, right? 3 or 4 hours. Luke nodded at me. He's old, and his legs are slow. But the sound of his footsteps as he left didn't sound slow at all. The bathroom was small, and neither of us had our phones, so we just stared at each other. Maybe we should do something? I asked Luke. He looked at the toilet, then at the shower head. Shower together? Or poop together? There really weren't many activities 2 people could do in here. In the bathroom, I sat on the toilet, and Luke squatted under the shower head, both of us propping our chins in thought. Jennifer, I kind of need to use the restroom. I nodded. To be honest, me too. I had drunk a lot of drinks during dinner and had been holding it for a while, but at a time like this, it was really a bit embarrassing. How about... No. Finally, he couldn't hold it in anymore, looking at me almost pleadingly. How about you pretend to be my girlfriend for one night? That way, if they hear us, it shouldn't be too awkward. Bro, I can't believe you came up with that. But there didn't seem to be a better solution. I covered my ears and retreated to the corner. He sat on the toilet for a while, but still couldn't go. He thought it might be too awkward with me there, so he adopted a burying one's head in the sand approach and started singing to himself. But that singing, I really couldn't compliment. He wailed for a long time, and I finally couldn't take it anymore. If he kept singing, I might lose my self-care ability on the spot. Bro, stop wailing. If you keep wailing, I won't be able to wait for you to help me publish my SCI. He finally shut up, looking at me sideways. If I don't solve this, I might not even be able to wait until I help you publish your SCI. All right, I still compromised. Then keep singing. He wailed for a while longer, but still couldn't resolve it smoothly. How about we get to know each other better? Bro, how can we get to know each other better in a bathroom? And at a time like this, what's the point of getting to know each other? I hugged myself and took a step back, shaking my head vigorously. No, seeing my wary expression, he said incredulously. You wouldn't think I'd force you, would you? I nodded. He scratched his head helplessly, messing up his hair. With this face, if anything were to happen, I'd be the one losing out, wouldn't I? Not only was his thought process unusual, but he was also a bit too narcissistic. Jennifer, I just want to understand your past, so that when you're my girlfriend it won't feel too sudden. But I felt it was very sudden. I shook my head. He ignored me. He started talking about his past on his own, so that when I considered him my boyfriend, it wouldn't feel too sudden. After his incessant talking, I really didn't feel it was sudden at all. In fact, I even felt he could be my best friend. I squatted next to him and patted his shoulder. Girl, are you constipated lately? He first looked at me in horror, then nodded seriously. A little. I slapped his thigh hard, and a crisp sound echoed through the bathroom. Me too. Then came my hearty laughter. After laughing for a while, we realized something was off. I looked down at his leg. The spot I had slapped was already slightly red. His pants were down to his thighs, but luckily his shirt was long enough to cover him completely. We finally realized something was wrong. It seemed like he was on the toilet. I quickly covered my eyes and backed away into the corner. You carry on. You carry on. Perhaps after such a fright, some splashing sounds finally emerged. When he wasn't singing, and after our awkward moment where no one dared to speak, The sound of our breathing in the bathroom was exceptionally clear. He seemed to have put on some soothing music, long and pleasant. Finally, he seemed to let out a long sigh of relief. Never mind. Never mind. It's really embarrassing to do this in front of a girl for the first time. Then he quickly got up and pulled up his pants. Embarrassing? He had already finished, yet he said it was embarrassing. He was just like those scoundrels who pull up their pants and deny everything. Just as my bladder was about to burst, my advisor slowly returned. The locksmith opened the lock in 2 minutes. My advisor patted my shoulder. Having a good time, aren't we? Luke pulled my advisor's hand off my shoulder, put his arm around him, and walked a few steps forward. Dad, you're really too mean. A few days later, my advisor found me and said that the department had an exchange student spot at Tsinghua University, and he planned to give it to me. I gladly accepted and happily added my new advisor. Jennifer Delaney, when can you come over? My new advisor's first words urged me to come. An advisor at Tsinghua, I figured, must be very strict. Thinking of this, I felt my thesis was in good hands. Any time. Then come tomorrow. Since I had agreed, I had to go, even if it killed me. The next day, I took a car to Tsinghua to report. Following the address my advisor gave me, I knocked on his office door, but it was Luke who opened it. Seeing me frozen in place, he patted my head. Jennifer, welcome to my team. I blinked. How can your WeChat name be Peace for Life? It doesn't quite match your age. He smiled. Because it's unique that way. It certainly was unique. I had thought my new advisor would be at least a middle-aged person in their 40s or 50s, dedicated to scientific research for life. But now, looking at a new advisor who wasn't much older than me, I really couldn't bring myself to call him advisor. He pointed to the seat opposite him, signaling me to put my things there first. I obediently did so. I just arrived here and don't have any students yet, so you're my first disciple. How about you call me teacher first? Seeing his smirking face, I just couldn't bring myself to call him teacher. After a struggle, I gave up. I can't accept a teacher who uses the restroom in front of me. I turned and sat directly opposite him, pretending to organize my things, but secretly glancing at him the whole time. He instantly froze at my words, then stiffly walked back to his seat. Seeing him so defeated, I decided to press my advantage. And your voice was too quiet, a bit inadequate. He was so angry his hands were shaking, and it took him a long time to squeeze out a few words through gritted teeth. Jennifer, you truly are my good student. Perhaps because I annoyed him on my very first day, he began to exploit me relentlessly. New teachers are all busy trying to get promoted and desperately need research achievements, and Luke was no exception. He often worked until past midnight, and when I arrived at the office in the morning, he had already started working. After so many days of high-intensity work, I finally fell ill. I woke up feeling dizzy and lightheaded, thinking it was nothing serious, and planned to quickly wash up and go to the office to work. But as soon as I got out of bed, I couldn't stand up. Just before I fainted, I grabbed my phone and haphazardly dialed a number. The phone rang only once before it was answered. But before I could speak, I fainted. When I woke up again, I was already lying in a hospital bed. A boy in a white shirt was sitting beside me, holding a meeting on his laptop. It was Luke. When he saw that I was awake, he took off one earphone and tucked the corner of my blanket in. Awake? I was afraid of disturbing his meeting, so I didn't dare to speak, only nodded. You rest for a while. I'm in a meeting. I'll be quick. I closed my eyes and listened to Luke's magnetic voice occasionally filling my ears. It was an international meeting, entirely in English. Although I was a postgraduate student who passed CET-4 and CET-6 on the first try, I still couldn't quite understand this level of communication. I don't know how it happened, but as the meeting progressed, he started explaining why he was in the hospital. I was a little curious and slightly leaned forward to look at his computer. It was then that I realized he was on a video call. With my messy hair, I met the gaze of 7 or 8 foreign friends on the screen. I watched their originally serious and worried faces slowly break into smiles, all showing gossipy expressions, and then they kept talking about something. Luke was wearing headphones, so I couldn't hear what the person on the other side of the screen was saying. And even if I could, I probably wouldn't have understood. Luke only noticed something was off when he was asked, and he gently tilted his head to look at me. He smiled at me and said, "She is my girlfriend." The person on the other side suddenly started laughing, gesticulating wildly. After hearing that, I didn't know how to react for a moment. Dragging him off the street to meet my advisor and lying that he was my boyfriend was all a temporary measure. He would occasionally joke that we were already boyfriend and girlfriend, even though it was fake. But having him declare his ownership in front of so many people still flustered me. I forced a smile that probably wasn't very pretty at the screen, then slowly lay back down on the hospital bed. They babbled some more useless things before ending the meeting. Luke closed his laptop, poured me a glass of water, and looked at me with concern. You always skip breakfast lately, and you've been staying up late with me, so your blood sugar is low. What does he mean, staying up late with him? It sounds like I stayed up late just for him. I also wanted to go back to the dorm and slack off earlier, but the teacher wasn't leaving, so how could I leave first? Oh, thank you for taking care of me despite your busy schedule. He frowned and touched my forehead. Why do I feel like you're being a bit sarcastic? A man's rich imagination really isn't a good thing. I wasn't being sarcastic. I just didn't want to stay up late anymore. After a few IV drips, I was almost fully recovered and was discharged in the afternoon. Luke was truly busy, constantly dealing with things on the way. Watching him work non-stop, yet still taking the time to ask how I was feeling, I actually started to feel a little sorry for him. Oh no, feeling sorry for a man is the beginning of trouble. It's true. To make things easier for me, he actually forced me to move my office into his rented house. And when he didn't have classes, he started working from home, ostensibly to make cooking more convenient so he could prepare breakfast for me. But most of the time, I bought breakfast on the way and brought it to eat with him. A few days later, he said that coming from school every day was too time-consuming and simply told me to move out. I looked for a house for several days and finally chose the one across from him. The day I met the landlord was a weekend, and Luke gave me a day off. I waited for the landlord at the door for half a day, sent him countless messages, and he finally replied with, "Later." Just 2 simple words, yet they carried a hint of a domineering CEO. I turned around and saw Luke slowly opening his apartment door and walking towards me. He naturally pulled me aside, holding a large bunch of keys. He spent a long time picking one out before inserting it into the lock. "Jennifer, a large portion of this building belongs to my family. If you marry me, it will all be part of your dowry." The man standing in front of me suddenly seemed to grow taller. I looked at the apartment, which was about to become my dowry, and was speechless. Luke led me inside. There were 2 bedrooms. He pointed to one of the sun-facing bedrooms and said, "This is the one I plan to rent to you, but you see how big this apartment is. Renting it to you so cheaply would be a bit of a loss for me. So would you be open to sharing it?" I nodded. The apartment was indeed a good value, and it was close to him. After he finished exploiting me, I could go home early. "Then can you make it a bit cheaper? Anyway, it might be my dowry, so there's no harm in haggling, right?" He shook his head. "It's already cheap enough. However, since you're my student and you're renting an apartment, I should share some of the burden. I'll cover your rent." Well, isn't this self-dealing? Renting the house to me, then paying the rent for me? Why not just let me live there directly? Why go through an agent? After signing all the agreements, I didn't gain or lose anything, but the agent made a fortune. "You might as well just give me the agent's fee. At least the money would stay within the family." He nodded. "It's not that I had to go through an agent. I was afraid you wouldn't agree if I just let you move in directly. But you just said, not an outsider? Of course, I'm not really an outsider, considering both father and son are supporting me. My former advisor still sends me a 2,000 yuan living allowance every month, and my new advisor takes care of my daily needs. Yes, you two are supporting me together." That evening, I moved in. I was tidying up my things for a while when Luke messaged me. "Jennifer, your new roommate is here, right at the door. Could you open it?" He found a roommate so quickly. He's really fast. I quickly tidied up the living room, hoping to make a good impression on my new roommate. I was wondering what kind of girl she would be when I heard the doorbell ring. I opened the door, holding 2 towels like handkerchiefs, ready to welcome my new roommate. "Welcome." I was about to say welcome. Before I could even say welcome, I saw Luke carrying bags and packages out of the house across the street, piling them all at my doorstep. "What are you doing?" He glanced at the towel in my hand, grabbed one, and wiped the sweat from his forehead. "My dad just rented out the house across the street. Someone's moving in a few days, so I got kicked out. I'll stay with you for a few days. Is this really appropriate?" "Teacher Luke? This isn't quite right, is it?" He looked at me as if flattered. "You used to call me Luke, and now you're calling me teacher? Too late. From now on, you can call me your roommate." I rolled my eyes at him. "I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to your dad." He ignored me and pushed all his luggage into the house. I sat in the living room watching TV, and Luke was cleaning. While he was mopping the floor, he suddenly stopped, turned, and looked at me. "Do you still remember that you're my girlfriend?" His question left me at a loss, and I stared at him, not knowing what to say. He sighed, pulled the mop into the bathroom. "Looks like you don't remember. Do I need to help you recall?" I shook my head like a rattledrum. He didn't force me, just smiled and continued cleaning the house. At night, I was reading a book when my old advisor suddenly messaged me. "Jennifer, Do you have time for a meeting? Although all my current research projects are with Luke, Luke is still my official advisor. Since he has tasks for me, I absolutely cannot refuse. Yes. Then he sent me a meeting ID. I rushed into the meeting and found that there were only 3 people: me, my advisor, and Luke. The meeting title was Progress Research on the Relationship Between Luke and Jennifer. My advisor cleared his throat and said, "Everyone turn on your cameras." I didn't want to, so I lied. "My camera is broken, Professor." Then Luke unmuted himself. "It's okay, Professor Luke. Jennifer and I are together. I'll go find her now." Before I could say my camera was working again, Luke was already knocking on my door. Helpless, Luke and I sat on the bed together, looking at my advisor on the computer. My advisor was already grinning from ear to ear, and he tidied up a few papers beside him. Given that Luke and Jennifer have known each other for a long time and have already admitted to being boyfriend and girlfriend, this meeting will mainly be for Luke to report on your progress. I awkwardly glanced at Luke, but he looked serious. He earnestly opened the stack of documents he had brought, then skillfully started screen sharing and opened the PPT. The first page of the PPT had several large red characters. Progress report on Luke and Jennifer's relationship. He began his report skillfully, even more seriously than our team meetings. Student Jennifer is a beautiful, gentle, optimistic, and cheerful girl. After analyzing Jennifer's personality, I found that she might prefer gentle boys, like Luke. Oh, get out of here. This is too shameless. Seeing Luke and old Dawson looking serious, I didn't dare to refute him. He rambled on, getting more and more outlandish, from the Big Bang to human evolution, and then to future technological development, talking eloquently, leaving me completely confused. Already struggling to understand, I took the document in front of him. The contents were clearly organized, documenting every little detail from when we met to how we got along. I looked at his carefully taken notes, feeling a little touched. After about half an hour, he finally finished his report. My advisor nodded happily. Very good. Very good. I hope you two continue to work hard. Next time we meet, I hope you can bring me back a grandchild. I shyly hid off screen. This was happening a bit too fast. Luke nodded. Still, we need to respect the girl's opinion. All right, this meeting is over. You can leave. It was finally over. I breathed a sigh of relief and tried to get out of bed, but my clothes got caught on the zipper of Luke's pants. I pulled away too quickly, and my clothes ripped with a tearing sound, leaving a small hole, and Luke was pulled towards me by my force. I touched my clothes. Thankfully, the tear wasn't too big, so nothing was exposed. I looked back to see Luke looking at me with a serious expression. He lowered his head, moving even closer to me. Just as he was about to kiss me, he suddenly stopped. "Jennifer, will you be my girlfriend?" Having known Luke for so long, I had indeed developed feelings for him over time, especially after that time he told his foreign friends I was his girlfriend. I felt a stir in my heart. It's just that Luke is so good. I'm afraid I'm not good enough for him. He's someone with 23 SCI papers. As I was hesitating about how to accept his confession, a voice suddenly came from the computer. "Just say yes. What are you waiting for?" Hearing this, we both gasped in surprise, especially Luke, who was lying on top of me. He almost sprang off me, and because he got up too quickly, my clothes ripped again with a tearing sound. Before I could react, a cold draft swept across my stomach. I fumbled, one hand covering my belly, the other trying to grab the blanket, but it was already pinned beneath me, and I couldn't pull it out after struggling for a while. Luke slammed the laptop shut with lightning speed. The moment the laptop closed, the mentor on the other side was still urging me on. "Quick, say yes to him." "Oh, Luke, why are you closing the laptop? I haven't finished watching yet." This was another female voice. Yeah. It's a live broadcast. Don't close the laptop." I looked at Luke somewhat awkwardly. He was glancing around, looking at every part of the room except me, his ears already a transparent red. He touched his ear, got off the bed, and moved a few steps away from me. As he moved away, I finally dared to get up and wrapped myself in the blanket. This meeting had me flustered. In this short time, I had broken out in a sweat. Luke wasn't much better than me, his bangs plastered to his face. "Professor Luke," I tentatively called him. Only then did he dare to look at me. With my permission, he slowly walked over and tidied up the laptop and the documents he had brought. "Jennifer, my parents are a bit too enthusiastic. Please don't mind them. They were a bit too enthusiastic, but I was happy to get the approval of my mentor and his wife. Although I don't know why they are so keen on getting Luke and me together, their actions show that they are very willing for me to be their daughter-in-law. How could I mind such lovely people? However, what bothered me most tonight was my dress. What kind of quality is this? The zipper ripped open such a large hole as soon as it snagged. It's all thanks to the unscrupulous merchants on Pinduoduo, who almost made me expose myself in front of my grand mentor, and his wife. The more I thought about my dress, the angrier I got, and I sat on the bed with puffed cheeks, not speaking. Luke put away his laptop, placed it on the table beside him, and cautiously looked at me. Are you that angry? Yes. I almost gritted my teeth. What kind of thing is this, so shoddy? Luke's face looked a little upset, and he leaned closer to me. You don't have to say it so harshly. They're not that shoddy. I also know that this merchant didn't have any malicious intent, just cut some corners, but today I almost exposed myself, so I'm allowed to be angry, right? They are. His eyes dimmed a little, and he ruffled my head to comfort me. Then I'll tell them not to do that anymore. I looked at him with some admiration. I didn't expect his family to be so powerful. I only thought my mentor was a university professor, and I was already surprised that he had so many properties. I didn't expect them to even be able to talk to the unscrupulous merchants on Pinduoduo. Luke looked a little flustered by my gaze and stepped back. Why do your eyes look so affectionate, as if you know I have a lot of SCIs? I leaned closer to him, stretched out both hands from under the covers, and grabbed his wrist. Professor Luke, then can you ask them to refund me? Refund? Luke stared at me with wide eyes, confused. I thought to myself, still pretending. You have so many houses. Are you still afraid of showing off your wealth in front of me? You want to drop out, and you want the school to refund your tuition? What is all this about? No. Didn't you say you were going to tell them not to sell unscrupulous products? He looked even more confused, frowning at me. What? Didn't you say my parents were too much? It's all messed up. Completely messed up. The two of us are completely on different wavelengths. He thought I was saying his parents were too much, but I was talking about the clothes I bought for 39.9. No, I meant my cheap clothes. His brows finally relaxed at her words, and he let out a deep sigh. You scared me. I thought you were going to drop out. After the last meeting with his advisor, Luke never mentioned pursuing me again. But all his actions indicated that he liked me somewhat. I also admit that I liked him too. But this kind of thing, I, as a girl, couldn't bring up, so I often gave him hints. For example, today, I cut him a heart-shaped watermelon. Teacher Luke, look at this watermelon. What does it look like? He stopped what he was doing, leaned back lazily in his chair, and looked at the watermelon on the plate with a smile. Why did you cut the watermelon to look like an apple? If you want an apple, I'll buy you one. I huffed at him angrily, picked up the watermelon, and carefully examined the heart I had carved. It was clearly quite similar, just the tip of the heart was a bit round. But this round tip represented that because I loved him, I had smoothed out all my rough edges. Since this method didn't work, I tried another trick. I used all my knowledge from my postgraduate entrance exam to find him with a formula for a cardioid. Teacher Luke, how should I draw this coordinate equation? He glanced at it indifferently, then gave me a meaningful look. Did you get in on your own merit? I nodded. Then go look through your textbook. It's definitely in there. This plan failed again. Just as I was sprawled on the sofa, pondering what tactic to use next, Luke pulled me up from the sofa. Jennifer, I have a task for you. He handed me 2 thick stacks of documents. Take some time to look through these. These are materials I've compiled specifically for your research topic, and I've already found the innovative points for the topic myself. Organize them, research them in depth, and try to write a first draft for me within a month. A month? Isn't that a bit too short? I had only recently started graduate school, and my research topic wasn't very far along. Suddenly being asked to churn out a paper within a month seemed impossible to me. Luke thought for a moment, then nodded. It is a bit difficult for you. He snatched the documents from my hand and handed me another set. I'm going to use this research to participate in a competition. You write the application form. That's also a 1-month deadline. Although writing an application form would also be difficult for me, it should still be simpler than producing a first draft of a paper intended for SCI submission within a month. I ran back to my bedroom with the materials. We had been busy for over half a month. I was busy with the competition, but I didn't know what Luke was busy with. However, it was clear that he was much busier than me, often having his lights on until 1 or 2 in the morning. I was a little worried about his health and always tried to make him something to eat. The competition date was getting closer, and my research project, under Luke's guidance, was nearing completion. I happily took the draft of the application to Luke, expecting praise, but when I pushed open the door, I saw him packing. Are you moving out? He paused his packing, not even looking at me. Do you know Professor Tony from the school? He was a student taught by old Dawson and later stayed on at the school. Their research group is also participating in this competition, and they sent a girl over. By seniority, she should be considered your junior. I thought since you're both girls, I'd let her stay with you for a couple of days to keep you company. And I'm also your junior mentor. If others knew I was living with you, it wouldn't be good for your reputation. People who don't know might think there's something between us. So that's what it was. I thought I had performed too poorly recently and disappointed him, and he wasn't going to continue mentoring me. I knew he was doing this for my own good, but to make him feel my affection for him, I twisted my body. There's always been something between us. The corner of his mouth seemed to twitch, and he raised his hand to cover his eyes. Don't do that. I'm not used to it. I rolled my eyes at him, completely baffled by his lack of understanding. My grandniece, who was a year older than me, arrived the next day, and I went to pick her up. As soon as she entered the house, she couldn't wait to lie down on the bed. Shish. She struggled for a long time, unable to utter the words grandniece. I couldn't let someone older than me call me grandniece either. You can call me Jennifer, senior. She finally breathed a sigh of relief. Jennifer, your house is amazing. Yes, and it might even be part of my dowry. My senior's name was Jason Smith, and she was the most outstanding student in her year. Their research group attached great importance to this competition because of its high prestige. If they could win first prize, their professor's research experience would be significantly enriched. Luke also took this competition very seriously, as it was the first one he had participated in since joining the school. That's what he said. But I don't know why he felt confident enough to entrust the entire project to me. As the competition drew nearer, I spent all day at Luke's house across the street, working with him to refine the project. I have to say, ever since Luke moved out, I feel like there's no one to do a lot of the housework. Now that Jason is still at home, she's a guest after all, and I can't ask her to do it, so all the chores fall on me alone. After he finished asking the last question, I started complaining to him again that I didn't want to mop the floor. He was in a rare good mood and actually offered to mop the floor for me. Anyway, I sleep late. At 2 in the morning, I'll go clean up the house for you. By this time, Jason must have been asleep, so I agreed happily without thinking twice. At 2 in the morning, Luke arrived as expected. I trotted behind him, watching him busy himself. Teacher Luke, don't you think we're like a couple having a secret affair behind everyone's backs? He snorted. Have you ever seen a couple cleaning the living room in the middle of the night? As soon as Luke finished speaking, the living room light suddenly turned on, and the sudden brightness made me unable to open my eyes. Jason's voice came from her doorway. Are you two together? I quickly shook my head and denied it. He's here to discuss a research topic with me. Discussing a research topic at 2 in the morning is even faker than watching a script in the middle of the night. I nudged Luke with my elbow. He only came back to his senses after I nudged him. It really is about a research topic. He held up the mop in his hand towards Jason. A topic about how to optimize the mopping function of a mop. Jason, half believing, took a glass of water. Before returning to her room, she didn't forget to remind me, it's so late, just discuss it. A man and a woman alone can easily lead to misunderstandings. I nodded and pushed her back into her room. Since she had discovered us, we couldn't continue tidying up the room, so I pulled Luke into my room. So, want to take a look at my application? He nodded, took out the USB drive he carried with him, and made a backup. He was engrossed in reading, but I was so tired that I fell asleep as soon as I hit the bed. When I woke up in the morning, Luke had already left. I opened my computer and glanced at the application. The format had already been revised, so it seemed almost ready. As the competition date drew nearer, Luke had already submitted the final version of the application, just waiting to pass the preliminary review and prepare for the defense. On the last day for submitting applications, Jason found me, holding her laptop, and stood before me with a worried expression. Jennifer, my computer suddenly broke down, but if I don't submit the application today, it will expire. Can you lend me your computer? I agreed without a second thought. After all, there was nothing important on my computer. Soon it was the day of the competition, and Luke took me to the venue early. He was wearing a suit today and looked exceptionally handsome. Not long after we arrived, Jason also came and enthusiastically greeted us when she saw us. Teacher Luke, I heard you are the son of Teacher Luke from our school. Our last meeting was so sudden, I didn't get a chance to say hello. Luke nodded and smiled. It's fine. The last time we met was at 2 in the morning in the living room, so it was certainly a bit sudden. Jason awkwardly touched the hairpin in his hair. Teacher Luke, you went to great lengths to arrange my accommodation. How about I treat you to dinner later? Luke turned to look at me. Together? Jason only said he was treating Luke to dinner, not me, so I declined. I won't go then. Luke looked at Jason. If she's not going, I'm not going either. Jason pouted a little sadly. Okay, soon. The competition order was announced. Jason was second, and we were fifth. It was quite close. I actually hoped we could present earlier, to get it over with and feel at ease. But Luke wasn't in a hurry at all, saying that being later allowed us to see the quality of the earlier projects. Soon it was Jason's turn. She opened her defense PPT with the projector. The PPT was simple and elegant, but its title differed from ours by only one word. I looked at Luke in confusion, finding him as unperturbed as usual. Instead, he smiled and leaned his head close to my ear. The topics clashed. Let's see how she did. But the further she flipped through her PPT, the more I felt something was wrong. Even if the titles were the same, I could still convince myself it was a coincidence. But the design background, design concept, project progress, and even the design data were all identical to our project. This project was handled by me alone. No one understood the entire design process better than I did. It was obvious that the project Jason was presenting was my project. Only then did I remember that on the last day of submitting the application, she said her computer was broken and borrowed mine. It's also my fault for trusting people too easily, always unwilling to suspect others with malice, which is why I didn't raise my guard. I turned to look at Luke, and found him still composed, as if he hadn't noticed anything. Although it was his defense today, perhaps he hadn't read the application thoroughly, which was why he hadn't noticed. Luke, this project and ours, I didn't finish my sentence. Luke glanced at me, then looked up at Jason, who was presenting his defense. Exactly the same, right? I nodded vigorously, almost on the verge of tears. What do we do now? 2 identical projects, and we're even later in the schedule. He raised his hand and stroked my head, offering me immense comfort. Jennifer, no one knows this project better than you and I. Trust me, okay? He was incredibly gentle, and his words were very reassuring. I looked at Luke's confident demeanor and finally relaxed, nodding my head. It would be our turn soon. Luke slowly walked to the front of the stage and opened the PPT, whose title differed from Jason's by only one word. The audience immediately erupted in an uproar, discussing the clash of topics, until Luke began to speak, and the hall gradually quieted down. He eloquently spoke about our design philosophy and design process, which were almost identical to what Jason had presented. 2 judges below were whispering to each other. I was close enough to catch a few phrases. Their topics are too similar. One of them must have plagiarizing. That's hard to determine. I saw that young lady just now. Her ideas were very clear, and she answered every question. Luke turned another page of the PPT, revealing content I hadn't seen before. I know my topic overlaps with student number 2's, and the content is quite similar. But through my research, I've found that all previous arguments were flawed. We overlooked a very small but crucial factor. After hearing his defense, I realized how important this overlooked aspect was. His subsequent points were well-reasoned, supported by experimental data. I don't know when he conducted these experiments, but Luke's research capabilities are indeed very strong. I secretly glanced at Jason's reaction and saw her clenching her fists tightly, her eyes bloodshot as she stared at Luke. This competition was being live-streamed online. If she were truly found guilty of plagiarism, her future in research would be over. After Luke's defense, the judges below applauded, and the outcome was clear. Out of respect for Jason's advisor, they didn't explicitly call her a plagiarist, but everyone understood what had happened. I happily ran to Luke. When did you do those experiments? He leaned down slightly, trying to match my height. Just now you looked like you were about to cry, and you're better so quickly. I touched my heart. You scared me to death. I thought we were over. He suddenly straightened up and looked behind me. Come on, let's go see. I turned around and saw Jason, who was wiping away tears and packing up. When she saw us coming, she quickly lowered her head and was about to leave with her things. Jason, want to grab a bite to eat? She paused, probably feeling greatly wronged, cried even harder, and ran away. Luke was in a great mood. He looked at me more affectionately today than ever before. She's not eating, let's go, just the 2 of us. It was during dinner that Luke explained to me why he had already prepared. Halfway through my research project, Luke noticed something was wrong, but he didn't tell me. Instead, he let me continue, and he took another direction to see how much the final results would differ. In the end, he found that my direction was completely wrong. But by then, Jason had already moved in. Her advisor, Professor Tony, had a history of taking other people's ideas, which was a blot on old Dawson's teaching career. Although he couldn't be sure Jason would do the same, he kept an eye out. It was also a good opportunity to teach me a lesson through this competition, he said. 100 reminders are not as good as 1 practical experience. When I went back that evening, Jason had already moved his things out and returned to school. Luke, again, happily moved his things back in. I thought moving things back and forth was too much trouble, so I just told him to bring the person over. He had been in an exceptionally good mood these past few days, always smiling foolishly at me. That evening, he mysteriously pulled me to his computer. I have a surprise for you. My heart fluttered with excitement. He had finally come to his senses and was planning to confess again, but I still pretended to be calm. What surprise? Open it. He pointed to the computer. He wouldn't be confessing with a computer, would he? Not even a flower. I was a little disappointed as I opened the computer, only to see an email interface on the screen, densely packed with English. I organized the competition project and submitted it to a journal. Although I gave you second authorship, I turned and hugged him directly. What's wrong with being second author? That's an SCI paper. With a second authorship, why would I worry about not getting a first authorship? But it's not certain it will be accepted yet. I believe in you. I hugged him tighter. He let out a long breath before hugging me back. Jennifer, he whispered in my ear. Do you remember saying you'd call me husband if I helped you publish a paper? I nodded. I remember, but I can't say it. He patted my head. It's okay. Take your time. That evening, I was grinning from ear to ear, overjoyed when Luke came in with a plate of sliced fruit. Jennifer, what does this watermelon look like? The watermelon was heart-shaped, just like the one I had cut for him last time. I deliberately pretended not to know. Why did you cut the watermelon to look like an apple? If you want an apple, I'll buy you one. He sighed and put the watermelon down. Why are you still holding a grudge? This is a heart shape. A heart shape. I nonchalantly said. Oh. Well, the tip of this heart is very round. He nodded, scooped a pointed piece, and fed it to me. Because I love you. I've smoothed out all my rough edges. These were words I had originally wanted to say to him. But hearing him say them, I only felt a chill run through me, and my scalp tingled with embarrassment. You're so cheesy.